Hello and welcome to Wisdom Heaven. Today we'll embark on the transformative journey of Tenzin and Thomas, two seekers from different spiritual traditions, who, through their deep conversations and shared experiences, uncovered the timeless truths of compassion, inner light, and silence. In a quiet village nestled between rolling hills, a young monk named Tenzin lived a humble life. He had spent years practicing the teachings of Buddhism, learning the art of mindfulness and seeking enlightenment. One afternoon, while sitting in the meditation hall, a visitor arrived. This visitor, a wandering Christian mystic named Thomas, had heard of Tenzin's wisdom and wished to seek his counsel. The two men, coming from different traditions, sat together in silence, each knowing that words could only go so far in their quest for truth. It was in the stillness that their souls began to speak. As they began to converse, Thomas shared his understanding of the Christ within, the divine spark residing in all beings, a concept from esoteric Christianity. Tenzin, having heard of many spiritual teachings, was intrigued but also cautious. He had often heard of the oneness of all things, a central idea in Buddhism, and wondered if this Christ within might be understood as the Buddha nature. They spoke of the interconnectedness of life, the deep well of compassion that flows through all living beings, and the need to transcend the self to experience true freedom. Tenzin, drawing upon his Buddhist training, spoke of the path to enlightenment, of overcoming attachment, ego, and desire. He described how the mind, clouded by ignorance, binds people to suffering, but through practice one can come to understand the impermanence of all things. Thomas, with his deep knowledge of mysticism, nodded thoughtfully, seeing the resonance between their teachings. In esoteric Christianity, there was the notion of dying to the self, of shedding the ego in order to be reborn into a higher spiritual state. Both teachings, though different in form, pointed to the same truth. Liberation comes through transcending the limited sense of self. In their conversations, the two men began to see that the heart of their spiritual paths wasn't about competing ideologies, but about a shared quest for inner peace. They spoke of suffering, which both traditions acknowledged as an inherent part of human existence. Buddhism teaches that suffering is an inevitable part of life, but it can be overcome through understanding and wisdom. Christianity, too, speaks of suffering as part of the human condition, with Christ's own suffering symbolizing a path to redemption. In this way, Tenzin and Thomas realized that suffering could serve as a doorway to deeper spiritual awakening. One evening, as they meditated together in the glow of the setting sun, they found a moment of profound silence. Neither spoke, but their hearts seemed to align. Tenzin reflected on the Buddhist teaching of compassion, known as metta, and how it required not just empathy, but also the recognition of the divine in others. Thomas, on the other hand, felt the presence of Christ in the air around them, a quiet love that bound them both. This was a shared experience, one where words fell away and only the purity of their hearts remained. The next morning, Thomas shared a story from his own tradition about a man who sought spiritual wisdom through many paths, but who ultimately realized that true knowledge came not from the mind, but from the heart. This resonated deeply with Tenzin, who remembered the Buddha's teachings on the importance of seeing with the heart rather than with the eyes alone. Both men understood that true wisdom is not intellectual, but a living experience that transforms one's being. The path to awakening, they realized, is not one of accumulating knowledge, but of embodying love and compassion in every action. Though their paths were different, their shared experiences were deeply similar. They both agreed that the external forms of their religions, rituals, prayers, and scriptures, were simply tools to help guide one toward a deeper truth. They saw that beneath the surface, both Buddhism and esoteric Christianity sought to reveal the same light, the light of the divine, the light that resides within all beings. This realization brought them closer, and they began to speak more openly about the nature of reality, sharing their insights without fear of judgment. As days passed, Tenzin and Thomas continued their conversations. They spoke about the role of silence in spiritual practice. Tenzin explained how meditation, the quieting of the mind, was essential for deep insight. Thomas spoke of contemplative prayer, the silent communion with God, and how it could lead one to encounter the divine presence